Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm Ron DeSantis, U.S. Congressman as of Monday, and now I'm just a citizen running for governor, which is great. I'm a veteran. I'm a husband and father of two young kids under 2. We have a 21-month-old daughter, Madison, and a 5-month-old son, Mason, which makes running for governor in the third largest state very interesting. And I happen to be the capitalist candidate running for governor this year, and we've got our work cut out for us. But let me just say, I mean, we're in a situation where sometimes people get turned off of politics because they say, everyone's the same, there's no difference who you elect. Well, this one is going to be a big difference for Florida in terms of who we elect. I mean, it's a very clear choice. My posture has been throughout the primary and now in the general election that Florida is a good state to live in. Florida's done well economically. We have issues we have to address, but the way to address them is to build off some of the success we've had, not to go off in a radically different, this left-wing, Bernie Sanders, Democrat, socialist type approach, which would really destroy a lot of the progress that Florida's made and end up mimicking policies that have been tried in other states and have failed. So it'd be a political equivalent of just shooting ourselves in the foot. So I'm going to be working my butt off to make sure that Florida chooses the right path, the prosperous path, and the path based on sound principles. But this is not going to be an easy race. And for people who were saying to me during the primary, I just don't want you to face Gwen Graham and all this stuff. And I thought to myself, you don't understand politics. I mean, the fact is, Graham Nelson would have been very boring. It would not have excited their base. Their governor candidate now nominee, he's going to be able to bring some people out. He's going to be able to do certain things that I think some of the other candidates wouldn't. Now, he's got liabilities too, don't get me wrong. But I can tell you, I don't think the state of Florida has a very good idea of who he is right now. So you, people who in Tallahassee or people who follow politics, you may have a clear understanding, but that clear understanding is not there through the rest of the state. And so we've got an awful lot of work to do. I'm confident that if every voter has an honest appraisal of my background, my leadership, and my platform, and an honest appraisal of his background, leadership, and platform, that we will win. But we've got to get there, and we need a lot of work, and we need your help to do. We can do a lot of really good things, I think pretty quickly even, if we're able to be successful. Governor Scott has started this process with the Judicial Nominating Committee for the Supreme Court justices. Most of you know, we've had a very activist Supreme Court in Florida for a generation. 3 of the 4 liberals, 4 liberals, 3 conservatives on the court. 3 of the 4 have mandatory retirement, so they leave the same time Governor Scott's term ends. There's a dispute about who can appoint those. Obviously, I support what Governor Scott's doing. If the Democrat wins, I don't want Gillum to be able to do it, but I think in point of fact, it's likely to fall to the next governor just for a variety of reasons. And so I'll be able to come in on day one, put 3 solid constitutionalists on the state Supreme Court. That would make it 6 constitutionalists to only 1 judicial activist. And oh, by the way, in one 4-year term, you replace the remaining activists, so you can leave, even if you serve 4 years, a 7-0 court. And so if you do that successfully, which I will do, you've ended judicial activism in Florida. It's done. And so when you do different reforms, when you do, toward reform or this or that, there's not going to be a liberal super legislature sitting on the court who's going to nullify conservative policy. The policies that are passed by the legislature and signed by the governor will be upheld unless, look, if there's really something unconstitutional about it, fine, but you're not going to have the activist judges where they're substituting their policy judgment for the judgment of the elected representatives. And that really, I think, fixes one of the biggest problems that's plagued our state government in recent years. And then it opens a pathway for us to do things that have been frustrated by the court in the past. In terms of the economy, though, I mean, think about it. You've seen what Governor Scott has done by focusing on jobs. He came in, the unemployment rate was almost 12% in Florida. He worked very hard, laser focused. I mean, it was almost to the point where someone would ask him how the weather was, and he'd say, jobs, jobs, jobs. He never took his eye off the ball. And now we're sitting here with unemployment rate about 3.7%. We have a lot of good things going in Florida in terms of the economy, and I think we're poised to attract even more investment in Florida. I was a part of the tax reform bill, tax cut that we did last year in December. We lowered the corporate rate, we lowered individual rates, which is good, but we also capped the state and local tax deduction. So people who are business people in high tax states, they are not going to have the luxury of writing off these massive tax increases in New York, in California, Connecticut, New Jersey, Illinois, those states. That's done. So you're already seeing people, obviously have been doing this for a while, come to Florida. But I think right now, if I can win, that'll be a catalyst where more people are going to be like, you know what, the hell with this. We're going to move to Florida. And so I think we can drive investment in finance. I think we can do better in technology, manufacturing. And it's really a golden opportunity for the state. If we elect a guy whose signature issue is to raise the tax rate by 40%, and who wouldn't even answer whether he's a capitalist or a socialist when he was asked, I think you're going to see people who may have some capital to invest in our state think twice if he's elected. I don't think there's any question about that. And obviously, if he'd be successful in pursuing these policies, you would be driving capital and investment away from Florida. So it would be a huge mistake to go down that road. That's the road I think that he's trying to go down. So we've got to win, I think, the economic future. And all the damage a governor can do by appointing him, if you're appointing left-wingers to all these different boards and agencies and everything, I mean, it would really, really be a bad turn for Florida. Whereas now we're one of the places to be. If I'm governor, we'll build off that. If we're not successful, then I think Florida is going in the direction of states that have tried these policies and have not succeeded. So we've got to get that right. He also embraces things like, they call it Medicare for all, which is single payer. But if you actually read the bill, it abolishes Medicare for seniors and forces them to go on this single payer. It abolishes your private insurance and forces you to go on the single payer. So it's a $35 trillion deal, massive tax increases. It would obviously bankrupt us, and it would take away healthcare choices for millions and millions of Floridians. I don't think that's something that people in Florida are going to want to go for. He's trying to run away from it now, but in point of fact, that's the direction he wants to go. So I think if you look at the promises he's made, and if he pursues all the spending ambitions that he has, you're looking at the only way to finance that with a balanced budget requirement in a state like Florida is to impose a state income tax. And I think that's the direction that he would go to try to get the revenue that he wants. He has referred to Florida being a low-tax state as being a cheap date. So that's how he thinks of, I think the low taxes give us a great competitive advantage. I think we're able to attract more people, more businesses as a result of that. He thinks that's a flaw in Florida, that we're not taxing enough and that we're being too, quote, cheap. So it's a much different view, but I think that's inexorably where we would go if he ends up being successful. Education. I think that there's a number of things we can do. One, starting with getting rid of this idea that the only way you can be successful is to go to college for 4 years. Look, I did it. A lot of you did it. I'm not saying it's not good. It's good for some people and many people, but that's not the only way you can be successful. And I think our high schools in particular have got to do a better job of providing opportunities for skills-based training, vocational education, so that people can get skills in high school. Maybe you do need more training after that or more education, but you're not going to have to go $50,000, $60,000 in debt with a degree in zombie studies, only to end up working in a job you could have had at a high school. So I think, but we have to provide those opportunities. But if we do, I think that's more opportunities for students as they graduate. I think it's also good for our business base because you'll be able to hire either out of high school or shortly thereafter. I mean, I have people in my districts like Daytona Beach area, and one of my guys does the rides for Universal Studios. Very good, skilled labor jobs, but can't hire out of the local high schools just because they're not providing the skills. So we can change that. I'm a big believer in expanding education choice for parents to allow them to have the wherewithal and the decisions, even if they don't have the means, to send their kid to school that makes sense for them. And I think that that's really the wave of the future. In a big, diverse state, when I grew up, I was in Dunedin, Florida. I was zoned there, and I went there, and I was fine. I mean, but that I don't think that one size fits all is going to work in a big, diverse state. I think different students are going to have different needs, different parents, and to be able to have options, whether that's somewhere else in a district-managed public school system, whether that's a public charter school, whether that's a private school, whether that's homeschooling, all of that, to me, is public education. It's simply empowering the parents to direct the public dollars to best educate their kids. So we'll definitely move in that direction. When you fix the court, some of the things that Jeb tried to do that got struck down, we would be able to do all of that with school choice. And I think it would be really, really exciting. Final thing I'm a stickler for is, with education, is we've got to start teaching civics in a much more comprehensive way, because you're graduating people that don't have an adequate foundation in what it means to be an American, the idea that, our rights, God-given, that we, the people, loan government power under the Constitution to protect our rights, and all the principles that are reflected in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, why we were different from other countries and have been different from other countries since. If you're doing that, that really requires more than just a day or two. You're talking about really significant ideas here, and I think every student, if they graduate from a Florida high school, should be capable of passing the same citizenship exam that naturalized immigrants, naturalized citizens, when they immigrate, have to pass. Then you're graduating people that have a solid foundation, and this has kind of been a lost art. Not that any generation has great civics. I think there's deficiencies if you look at polling, but the youngest generation is like off the cliff in terms of knowledge of the basics, and so we've neglected that for too long. There was a part on the ballot where we could have voted in a big civics thing that got struck down because of some of the language associated with it. I was real supportive of that. We can still move to do that legislatively, but we really got to be serious about it. Our environment is going to be an important issue. It's something that I've been stressing to start the campaign. If you look in Southwest Florida, the Treasure Coast, we were in the Everglades yesterday, it's something that voters want to know that you're going to pay attention to, and I've shown I'm going to do that, and we have a plan to be able to make sure that really the foundation of Florida's vitality is the fact that we have a nice state that people want to be in. We have, tourists enjoy coming, fishing, boating, all that stuff. That's central to our DNA. We want to make sure that that remains good, and any deficiencies that we have, that we're correcting that. And there was, when people ask the voters, now they don't know us that as well as they will 6 weeks from now, but, I'm like running just as good as Gillum with environment. Republicans usually can't do that. So I think that's a big plus for me, going down the stretch. And the final thing I'll say is, obviously, I could be elected governor and just sleep all day, and I would be better than the damage that Gillum would do, because he would do affirmative harm. But it is important that if, when I'm elected, that I'm not somebody that's just going to sit kind of idly by and let opportunities pass us by. I'll be very, very energetic. I will exercise leadership. And to me, leadership means doing the right thing when it's not easy, when it's not always politically the easiest thing to do. I'm willing to stand up and be counted and achieve things on behalf of the people of Florida. And I think that's very, very important, that a governor is not just somebody who has the title of governor, but it's actually a leader and is exercising leadership. So you can count on me to do that. We have a lot of issues that we could do. Important for business, the litigation reform, lowering some of these taxes. There's just so many opportunities that if we can get this election right, we're going to be able to solidify a lot of the progress we've made under Rick Scott, build off that. And that makes it much harder for 4 or 8 years down the line. If the Democrats keep running people this far to the left, it's going to be harder and harder for them to undo a lot of the progress that we've made. So what I would say is, this is not one to hedge on. This is not one to sit on the sidelines for. He's going to have a lot of support from Soros and all these people. He's going to have the media behind him. And we need to fight back, and we need to be able to define this race positively. So I wouldn't be sitting around thinking, it's all going to work itself out. I would say, what can I do right now to be able to help so that Ron is successful at winning the governor's race. And if everyone's on board and we're all in on this thing, I think we'll be successful. But we need you guys to step up now. We need to get this. People are going to start voting pretty soon. Ballots are going to go out in a few weeks. And so we just launched our first, ad campaign. It's a $4 million over the next 10 days, and introduces some aspects of my biography not everyone knew, namely that when I was growing up in Dunedin, we made it to the Little League World Series, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and it taught me lessons in life about the day we started practice. Our goal was to make it to Williamsport, a little speck on the map in West Central Florida. We worked every day. We had to win all these games to get up there, but we got there. And that's something that I've carried with me, and it's something that, we can use as governor, where, you're setting these goals and you're working your tail off to achieve the goals on behalf of the state. So that'll be a good introduction, but we need more firepower. We need to do it. So I know Tom has been talking to you guys, and I appreciate that, but just let me tell you, this is not a gimme race at all. This is going to be very hard fought, and in Florida, you can never take anything for granted. So thank you guys for letting me come and speak with you. We want you on board as big as you can, and I can promise, I'm going to work my tail off nonstop. A lot of times I wake up, I don't know what city I'm in, so I'm going around. So we're working very hard to get it done. So you guys any questions for me? I'm happy. I'll be around a little bit after this, but thank you guys for your help. Thanks for the endorsement, and God bless, and let's go win this thing. Thank you.